Most people are exhausted not because life is hard, but because they never stop long enough to understand themselves. They surround themselves with noise, opinions, and distractions, hoping something outside will fix what's broken inside. But the truth is this: the life you want cannot be built in chaos. It is built in silence. There comes a moment when stepping away is not weakness. It is wisdom. When you are alone, there is no mask to wear, no role to play, no one to blame. There is only truth. And truth is where rebuilding begins. If your life feels off track, scattered, or unfulfilled, it's not because you're incapable. It's because you haven't paused to realign. Being alone is not about isolation. It's about intention. It's about facing yourself, correcting your direction, and designing a life that reflects who you are meant to become. Step into solitude, and you may just find the clarity that changes everything. Being alone has a way of stripping life down to what is real. When the noise fades and the opinions disappear, you are left with nothing but yourself, your thoughts, your habits, your decisions. This is where truth lives. Most people avoid this moment because distraction is easier than honesty. They fill their days with activity, entertainment, and conversation, so they don't have to face the person they have become. But if you want to rebuild your life, you must be willing to sit quietly and look at yourself without excuses. When you are alone, you cannot hide behind business. You begin to notice patterns you once ignored. You see how you spend your time, how you react under pressure, how often you delay important actions. Solitude exposes whether your life is driven by intention or by impulse. It shows you whether your habits are building your future or quietly tearing it down. This awareness is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. You cannot change what you are not willing to see. Truth also reveals the gap between who you are and who you know you should be. Alone time brings clarity about broken promises you've made to yourself, talents you've neglected, and standards you've lowered. This isn't meant to shame you. It's meant to wake you up. Growth does not begin with motivation. It begins with recognition. The moment you see the truth clearly is the moment change becomes possible. Many people blame circumstances for their results. They point to the economy, their background, or the people around them. But solitude removes those distractions and leaves one undeniable fact: your life is the result of accumulated choices. Some were wise, some were careless, but all of them were yours. Accepting this truth is not a burden, it's a gift. Because if your choices created your current life, then better choices can create a better one. Being alone also reveals what truly matters to you. When there is no audience, no pressure to perform, you discover your real priorities. You learn what you care enough about to pursue when no one is watching. This is where authentic goals are born. Not goals borrowed from others, but goals aligned with your values. Rebuilding your life requires direction, and direction comes from understanding what is genuinely important to you. Solitude sharpens self-awareness. You begin to notice how your thoughts shape your behavior. You recognize negative thinking patterns, self-doubt, and fear-based decisions. Once you see them, they lose their power. Awareness turns unconscious habits into conscious choices. And conscious choices are the building blocks of transformation. The truth revealed in solitude is not always pleasant, but it is always useful. It shows you where you must grow, what you must change, and what you must protect. It tells you when you've been settling for comfort instead of progress. And it reminds you that your potential is greater than your current results. When you learn to be alone with yourself, you stop running from reality and start working with it. You gain clarity, honesty, and direction. Truth becomes the foundation upon which you can rebuild your life, stronger, wiser, and more intentional than before. Silence has a way of returning responsibility to where it belongs. When the voices of others fade and the distractions are removed, there is no one left to blame. This is where responsibility begins. Not in motivation, not in inspiration, but in quiet ownership. Rebuilding your life requires this moment of acceptance, because as long as responsibility is avoided, progress remains impossible. In the presence of noise, it's easy to justify your position. You can blame circumstances, point to unfair treatment, or wait for someone else to change. But when you are alone, excuses lose their strength. You begin to see that while you may not have controlled every event in your life, you have controlled your responses. And those responses, repeated over time, have shaped your current reality. This realization is uncomfortable, but it is also empowering. Responsibility in silence teaches you that no one is coming to rescue you. No perfect moment is on the way. No external change will fix an internal problem. This understanding shifts your focus from wishing to working. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" you start asking, "What must I do now?" That single shift in thinking moves you from victimhood to leadership over your own life. Being alone removes the need for approval. You stop measuring your progress by other people's opinions and start measuring it by your own standards. Responsibility grows when you decide to live by principles rather than moods. You begin to recognize that discipline is a personal agreement, one you keep whether or not anyone else is watching. This is the kind of responsibility that builds character, not just results. Silence also forces you to confront the cost of neglect. You see how small delays, overlooked habits, and unkept promises compound over time. Nothing dramatic caused the breakdown, just consistent inattention. Understanding this prevents you from repeating the same mistakes. You learn that success and failure both grow quietly, day by day, through choices that seem insignificant in the moment. Taking responsibility does not mean blaming yourself for everything. It means accepting that you are the decision maker moving forward. The past may explain you, but it does not have to imprison you. Responsibility frees you from regret because it replaces guilt with action. Instead of dwelling on what went wrong, you focus on what must be corrected. In silence, you also discover your capacity to change. Without the noise of comparison, you realize that improvement is personal, not competitive. You don't have to match anyone else's pace. You only have to keep your own commitments. This creates stability and confidence. When you know you can rely on yourself, you no longer depend on motivation or encouragement to move forward. Responsibility, when embraced, becomes a source of strength. It clarifies priorities, sharpens decisions, and simplifies life. You stop chasing shortcuts and start building foundations. Every step you take is intentional, because you know the direction is your responsibility. Silence doesn't judge you, but it does tell the truth. And that truth is simple: the moment you accept responsibility, you regain control. Control leads to clarity. Clarity leads to action, and action is the only path to rebuilding a life that truly belongs to you. What you do when no one is watching determines who you become when everyone is watching. This is the quiet truth behind discipline. It is easy to perform when there is praise, deadlines, or pressure from others. It is much harder to show up consistently in private, when no one is counting, applauding, or correcting you. Yet this is exactly where your future is being shaped. Rebuilding your life requires understanding that your private actions are not small. They are decisive. Discipline begins as a personal promise. It is the decision to act according to your long-term goals rather than your short-term feelings. When you are alone, there is no external force pushing you forward. You either move yourself, or you remain still. This is why private discipline is so powerful. It reveals whether you are driven by intention or convenience. Every time you keep a promise to yourself in solitude, you strengthen trust in your own character. Most people underestimate the impact of small, unseen actions. Reading when no one assigns it. Exercising when no one expects it. Planning when no one demands it. These actions seem insignificant in isolation, but they compound over time. Private discipline works quietly, accumulating strength, skill, and confidence. Public results are rarely sudden. They are the visible outcome of invisible habits practiced consistently. When discipline is absent in private, life becomes reactive. You wait for urgency to force action. You rely on stress, deadlines, or fear to move you. This leads to cycles of burnout and regret. Private discipline breaks this pattern by creating structure. It replaces chaos with order and replaces excuses with standards. You no longer ask how you feel before acting. You act because it is part of who you are becoming. Being alone reveals the gap between intention and behavior. You may have strong goals, but discipline is what gives them weight. Without disciplined action, goals remain wishes. Solitude makes this clear. You see whether your daily routine aligns with your desired future. This awareness allows correction before failure becomes permanent. Private discipline also develops self-respect. Each time you do what you said you would do, even when it is uncomfortable, you build internal pride. This kind of confidence is different from arrogance. It does not need validation. It is quiet, steady, and resilient. When challenges arise, disciplined individuals don't panic. They rely on habits they've already built in private. Public success often looks glamorous, but it is supported by a foundation few people see. Skills are sharpened alone. Knowledge is accumulated alone. Strength is built alone. The applause comes later. Those who chase recognition without discipline find that success, if it comes at all, is fragile. Those who prioritize private discipline create results that last because they are supported by character. Rebuilding your life requires redefining success. It is not about appearances or comparison. It is about consistency. Discipline in private simplifies decisions. You no longer negotiate with yourself every day. Your standards decide for you. This reduces mental fatigue and increases momentum. When you commit to private discipline, you stop waiting for perfect conditions. You work with what you have. You improve where you are. You understand that progress is earned in solitude before it is displayed in public. Over time, these quiet efforts shape not only your results but your identity. You become someone who can be trusted by others and, more importantly, by yourself. Rebuilding your life requires the courage to let go of what once felt familiar. Most people try to improve their future while holding tightly to their past. Old habits, old thinking, and old identities that no longer serve them. This is one of the greatest obstacles to growth. You cannot move forward while carrying the weight of what is outdated. Solitude makes this truth impossible to ignore. When you step away from constant influence, you begin to see which parts of your life are draining your energy rather than strengthening it. Certain routines, behaviors, and thought patterns may have once helped you survive, but survival is not the same as growth. What protected you in one season can limit you in the next. Being alone gives you the clarity to recognize when it's time to release what no longer aligns with who you are becoming. Letting go is difficult because identity is involved. Habits are not just actions, they are expressions of who you believe you are. When you try to change them, it feels like you are losing a part of yourself. But rebuilding your life means upgrading your identity. You are not erasing your past. You are refining it. Growth does not dishonor who you were. It honors who you are capable of becoming. Old thinking patterns are often the hardest to release. Negative self-talk, fear-based decisions, and limiting beliefs become comfortable through repetition. Alone time exposes these mental habits. Without external distraction, you hear the stories you tell yourself. Some of them are outdated, inaccurate, or inherited from other people's opinions. Solitude gives you the opportunity to challenge these thoughts, instead of accepting them as truth. Rebuilding requires subtraction before addition. You cannot build a strong structure on a weak foundation. This means removing behaviors that sabotage discipline, relationships that drain progress, and environments that reinforce stagnation. Letting go is not an act of loss, it is an act of alignment. You are making room for better habits, better thinking, and better standards. Many people delay letting go because they fear uncertainty. The old life may be unsatisfying, but it is predictable. Growth introduces discomfort and risk. Solitude teaches you that discomfort is not danger. It is a signal of transition. Every meaningful change begins with a period of instability. This is not failure, it is reconstruction. Letting go also requires honesty about emotional attachments. Sometimes you hold on to old versions of yourself because they carry memories, validation, or a sense of safety. Alone time allows you to process these emotions without distraction. You learn that growth does not require bitterness or resentment. You can release the past with gratitude while still choosing a different future. As you let go, your standards rise. You become more intentional about how you spend your time, who you listen to, and what you tolerate. Rebuilding your life means choosing alignment over comfort. It means deciding that your future deserves more than your habits of yesterday. When you remove what no longer serves you, progress accelerates. Energy once wasted on maintaining old patterns becomes available for growth. Clarity increases. Focus sharpens. You begin to feel lighter, not because life is easier, but because you are no longer resisting change. Letting go is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the understanding that to rebuild something strong, you must first clear away what cannot support the structure. In solitude, you find the courage to release the old so the new can take shape. When the crowd disappears, direction begins to form. Constant interaction, comparison, and noise make it difficult to see where you are going, because your attention is always being pulled outward. Solitude quiets the world enough for your inner vision to surface. This is where clarity is born, not from urgency, not from pressure, but from stillness. Rebuilding your life requires knowing where you are headed, and that understanding comes most powerfully when you are alone. Without isolation, goals often become borrowed. You chase what others value, admire what others achieve, and measure your progress against standards that may not reflect your true priorities. Alone time removes this distortion. It forces you to ask honest questions about what you want and why you want it. When no one is watching, you discover what matters enough to pursue, even without applause. Clarity is not about having all the answers. It is about knowing what deserves your energy. Solitude helps you separate urgency from importance. Many people stay busy but directionless, mistaking movement for progress. When you are alone, you can slow down and assess whether your daily actions align with your long-term vision. This awareness prevents wasted effort and emotional exhaustion. Vision becomes clearer when distractions are reduced. You start to see patterns in your behavior and outcomes. You notice what brings growth and what causes stagnation. This insight allows you to refine your goals, raising standards where you've been settling, and adjusting expectations where you've been unrealistic. Clarity does not restrict you, it focuses you. Being alone also strengthens decision-making. When choices are made in isolation, they are less influenced by fear of judgment or need for approval. You begin to decide based on values rather than validation. This creates consistency. When your actions align with your principles, progress becomes sustainable instead of reactive. Clarity in solitude transforms goals from vague desires into defined intentions. You stop saying, someday, and start deciding, now. You understand that rebuilding your life requires structure, not just hope. Clear goals give your discipline a target, and your effort a purpose. Without clarity, even hard work can lead nowhere. Solitude also helps you visualize a future that is intentionally designed rather than accidentally inherited. You imagine not just what you want to achieve, but how you want to live. This broader vision influences daily choices, how you spend your time, what you tolerate, and what you invest in. Clarity simplifies life by reducing internal conflict. When vision is unclear, doubt increases. You question your progress because you don't know what progress looks like. Alone time resolves this uncertainty. You define success on your own terms, which creates confidence and stability. When challenges arise, you remain steady, because you understand the direction you are moving in. Rebuilding your life without clarity is like constructing a building without a blueprint. Effort may be high, but results will be inconsistent. Solitude gives you the blueprint. It allows you to see the big picture, while refining the small details. Direction becomes intentional rather than reactive. As clarity deepens, motivation becomes more reliable. You are no longer driven by emotion but by purpose. You move forward because you know why you are moving. This sense of direction transforms solitude into strength, and uncertainty into focus. When vision is born in isolation, it guides you long after the noise returns. Being alone is often misunderstood as withdrawal or weakness, but in reality, it is a season of preparation. It is not an escape from life. It is a strategic pause that allows you to rebuild before re-engaging. Rebuilding your life requires time away from constant interaction, so you can strengthen the foundation of who you are. Solitude, when used wisely, is not avoidance. It is training. Every meaningful transformation in life requires a period of separation. Athletes train away from the spotlight. Thinkers reflect in silence. Builders prepare before construction begins. In the same way, personal growth happens most effectively when you step back from noise and pressure. Alone time gives you the space to develop skills, habits, and perspectives that cannot be rushed. This season of solitude allows you to rebuild without distraction. When you are constantly reacting to others, your energy is divided. Solitude concentrates your focus. You begin to invest fully in learning, discipline, and self-correction. This is where weaknesses are addressed and strengths are refined. Preparation happens quietly, but its effects are powerful. Being alone also protects the rebuilding process. Early growth is fragile. Sharing unfinished plans or half-formed ideas with the wrong people can create doubt and discouragement. Solitude shields your progress until it is strong enough to stand on its own. This is not secrecy born of fear, it is patience born of wisdom. Preparation requires time. Many people rush back into old environments too quickly, before they have changed internally. Solitude prevents this mistake. It allows habits to stabilize and identity to shift. When you return to the world, you do so with clarity and resilience instead of confusion and vulnerability. This season also teaches self-reliance. When you learn to stand alone, you stop depending on constant reassurance. You trust your judgment because it has been tested in silence. This creates emotional independence, which strengthens relationships rather than weakening them. You return not needy, but grounded. Solitude refines your values. Away from social influence. You decide what you will and will not tolerate. You establish boundaries. These boundaries are not walls. They are standards that protect your growth. Preparation clarifies what you are willing to invest your energy in moving forward. Entering the world after solitude is not about proving anything. It is about contribution. You return stronger, wiser, and more intentional. You bring value because you have done the work privately. This preparation allows you to serve, lead, and connect more effectively. Many people fear solitude because they see it as losing connection. In truth, it deepens connection. When you know yourself, you interact with others authentically. You are no longer shaped by their expectations. Preparation in solitude creates presence, confidence, and stability. Rebuilding your life is not a public performance. It is a private process. Solitude is the workshop where that process unfolds. When used as preparation, not escape, being alone becomes one of the most powerful tools for lasting transformation.